Nobody drives to Walmart planning to find empty shelves. That is what makes the moment so disorienting. You expected a normal trip. Instead, the water aisle holds a handwritten sign. The battery section is cleared to the pegs. The pharmacy shelf where the ibuprofen usually sits has a gap you could lay your arm across. 12 hours ago, everything was fully stocked. What changed was not the supply. What changed was the demand. One headline, one forecast, one moment when enough people in the same area decided it was time to act. The retail system that normally absorbs daily purchases without effort collapsed under a single afternoon of synchronized pressure. The items that vanish first are not random. They follow a documented pattern that repeats in every disruption, in every region, regardless of the cause. 8 items, all of them in your local Walmart right now at normal prices. The question is whether they will still be there when you decide it is time. Water clears first, every time. In every documented disruption, in every region, regardless of the cause. The water aisle is the canary. It's also the most misunderstood clearance on the list. Most households still have functional tap water during the early stages of most disruptions. They're not buying bottled water because the supply failed. They're buying it because they don't know whether it will. And water is heavy. One household loading a cart with a week's supply removes what normally serves 10 to 15 daily purchases from the shelf. Multiply that across 300 households in a single afternoon, and the math is simple. The aisle is empty before the trucks can respond. Here's what makes this avoidable. A basic water filter and a few stored gallons at home remove you from that aisle entirely, not partially. Entirely. You're not in the line. You're not in the parking lot. You're not making the problem worse for someone who actually needs it. The cost is under $30. The alternative is a 2-hour drive to 3 different stores, hoping one of them restocked before you arrived. The second aisle to clear isn't food, it's batteries. That surprises people until they think about what batteries actually power in their household. Flashlights, headlamps, a battery-powered radio, a thermometer, and a medical monitor. Every backup device in the home runs on AA or 8AA cells, and people reach for those devices at the same moment the grid goes down. Batteries have a failure mode that makes them uniquely dangerous to ignore. They don't signal depletion. A device can appear completely functional right up until the moment it stops working. You turn on the flashlight in the dark and nothing happens. That discovery at the exact moment you need it most is the failure. Walmart's battery section is small relative to the store. A moderate increase in demand empties it faster than most food aisles. Unlike water or bread, batteries are not restocked from local distribution. They follow a slower replenishment cycle that can leave shelves bare for days. Stock a dedicated supply at home. Rotate it annually. Keep fresh disposable batteries, not rechargeables that require the grid to charge. The cost of a year's supply is less than a single tank of gas. You do not lack food. You lack the ability to heat it. Most American kitchens run entirely on electricity. Electric range, microwave, electric oven. When the grid drops, every one of those appliances is dead. The pasta, rice, canned soup sitting in your pantry is still there. You just cannot do anything with it. A portable butane or propane stove solves this for $20 to $60. But the stove is only half the solution. The fuel canisters are the other half, and they are the half that clears the shelf. Walmart stocks a limited supply of butane and propane canisters because they are a low-volume item under normal conditions. A small demand spike empties the shelf entirely. When a storm is forecast, these clear before the food aisle does. People who already own a stove but have not maintained their fuel supply discover the gap at the worst possible moment. The stove without canisters is decoration. Have the fuel before you need it. The preparation window is the entire value. The pharmacy aisle doesn't clear during a power outage. It clears the moment any health-related headline breaks. Pain relievers and fever reducers move first. Cold medicine follows. Antihistamines, stomach remedies, and children's formulations empty next. This pattern has repeated across multiple recent disruption events. Not because people were sick, because they anticipated being sick and unable to reach a store. The real risk isn't a medical emergency. It's a fever at 11 p.m. when the pharmacy section is already stripped, a child with an earache on day 2 of an outage, a headache that won't break when there's nothing in the medicine cabinet. Under disrupted conditions, stores crowded, shelves picked over, movement restricted, the same issues compound across days and drag the entire household down. A small buffer supply removes you from the pharmacy aisle completely. Pain relievers, fever reducers, an antihistamine, a thermometer, and a short supply of any prescription medications your household depends on. Total cost under $20. The window to stock it is before there's any reason to. If you watched what happened in early 2020, this one does not need much setup. Toilet paper became the most visible example of a behavioral cascade overwhelming a retail system that was never designed to absorb it. Manufacturing was running, trucks were moving, distribution was functioning normally. The problem was demand. Millions of households decided to stock up in the same compressed window, and Walmart's replenishment system, calibrated for steady, predictable daily consumption, could not keep pace. The gap between an empty shelf and a restocked one stretched to days, in some locations, weeks. The moment most people think they should grab an extra pack is the moment the window has already closed. At that point, you are not acting ahead of the crowd. You are the crowd. Buying a few extra packages on a normal shopping trip before any signal of disruption is the entire strategy. The lesson is not about toilet paper specifically. It is about recognizing which everyday items behave this way under demand pressure and choosing to act before the moment when everyone else thinks to. If this has been useful so far, A-like helps it reach people who could actually use it. The food aisles clear in 2 waves. Most people only notice the first one. Wave 1 is bread, milk, and eggs, perishable comfort foods people reach for instinctively. These are items shoppers grab not because they have calculated a need, but because it feels like what you are supposed to buy before a storm. Bread clears fastest because it is visible. It takes up a disproportionate amount of shelf space, and every household reaches for the same thing. Wave 2 is slower, but more complete. Canned goods, things like soup, vegetables, beans, and canned meat. This wave starts from 6 to 12 hours after the first and continues until the aisle is stripped down to the shelf liner. Canned food is the backbone of most household emergency supplies. But every can in that supply depends on one item most people do not own: a manual can opener. Electric openers die when the grid goes down. A knife is slow, unreliable, and genuinely dangerous. A manual opener costs under $10, and it is consistently absent from households with substantial canned food. People build the pantry, and they forget the final step. A can you cannot open is functionally identical to not having the food at all. The resource is there. The access to the resource is not. Those are not the same thing. This item appeared at the end of the list for a reason. It connects everything that came before it: flashlights and headlamps. Clear Walmart shelves the moment a power outage is anticipated or confirmed. The lighting section is small, stocked for occasional household replacement, not synchronized regional demand. A moderate spike empties it completely. But the clearance itself is not the real problem. The real problem is what happens without light. You cannot find your supplies. You cannot read a medication label. You cannot prepare food safely. You cannot treat a wound. You cannot move through your own house without risk. Every other item on this list becomes harder to access, harder to use, and harder to manage after dark. A flashlight without fresh batteries is useless, and that connects directly to the second item on this list. The dependency runs in both directions. A headlamp solves what a flashlight does not. Hands-free, adjustable, no fire risk. They can run 8 to 20 hours on a single set of batteries. They cost $15 to $40. Keep at least 2 and know exactly where they are. This is the item that makes everything else on this list functional when the lights go out. Every item on this list is available at Walmart right now. Full stock. Normal prices. No lines. What determines whether they matter is timing. The gap between thinking I should probably handle that and realizing I can no longer handle that does not open because of a dramatic event. It opens when a threshold of public concern is crossed, and millions of people respond simultaneously. Supply chains built for steady, distributed demand cannot absorb synchronized pressure. They buckle. The window closes. The cost of waiting gets paid in full. The people who were already covered at that moment were not the ones who moved fastest after the signal. They were the ones who were never in the same position as everyone else to begin with. They acted earlier, not dramatically earlier, just ahead of the moment when the crowd moved. 8 items, most under $30, all available today. Which of these 8 are in your house right now, and which one are you picking up this week? Drop it in the comments.